Now, the public interest essay has weighed in on the resignation of investigating Directorate against corruption, or IDAC head Andrea Johnson, saying her departure alone is not enough to restore public confidence in the institution. The organizations argued that several senior officials who allegedly enabled Johnson's conduct may themselves be implicated in wrongdoing remain within IDAC. Johnson stepped down following heightened scrutiny after her testimony before the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry last week. Joining us on the line is Tebogo Khaas, who's founder and chairperson of Public Interest SA. A very good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us and welcome.
Good evening and thank you for having me, Paul.
Perhaps let's start right at the beginning. You've said that Johnson's resignation is not enough. What additional steps do you believe are necessary to restore credibility at IDAC, just given all that we've heard through the Madlanga Commission about the nature in which charges were pressed?
Yeah, thank you for that question. Let us maybe take one step back and understand the circumstances that led to Advocate Johnson's resignation. Over a week ago, you'd recall that Minister Kubai invited her to a meeting, or summoned her to a meeting, maybe someone is a better word.
Yes.
In which they showed her the report that was a result of investigations pursuant the complaints that we had lodged against her, for the minister, for the president to actually institute a hearing on her fitness to hold office. And based on the damning information that was in that report, she had very little option and to resign, amongst the fact that she's facing scrutiny on so many other levels. For example, I think Johnson realized that subjecting herself to a public hearing would actually even disclose so much that may not necessarily be even in the public eye, because that report itself, like I said, it was damning. It had uncovered certain things that were not necessarily in the public domain. But more importantly, I want to believe that they probably said to her, we give you 7 days, come back to us with a decision, after having consulted whomever you need to consult, which is what she did. Because if you look at even the resignation itself, she reluctantly resigned because you can see how bitter she still feels, how vindictive she still feels, talking about personal attacks, talking about this. There was nothing personal in terms of the calls for accountability on her part, at least not from us. There is no animus. What we're just calling for is accountability based on what she had already admitted to, amongst others, including the fact that she was conflicted when she said in the panel interview of her husband. Something that doesn't seem to get away from her character, because even as recently as a few months ago, last year, she was it last year or early this year? Early this year, she actually was challenged a magistrate who recused himself from a matter where the magistrate believed there was reasonable apprehension of bias on his part in a matter involving I think the Madondo and others, I think. And the minister was right to say, look, he feels he was conflicted, but she challenged him in circumstances where you and you yourself can know whether you're conflicted or not. And for a prosecutor to now want to say you must sit in a matter that which you believe you cannot adjudicate it fairly, I don't think it's inimical. It's inimical to the code of ethics to which they subscribe. So, having dealt with that, and the fact that the language itself, you can see that she was still saying if she had gone through that tribunal, she could have been cleared, just like Advocate Andrew Chauke was cleared recently from Ngabinde inquiry.
If you'll allow me, pardon me, just to interrupt you, what we did see, just watching the ripple effect of some of the work and the evidence that has come to the forefront is that the NPA head, Andy Mutibi, has now withdrawn the charges against Lieutenant General Dumsani Khumalo, pending, of course, further investigation. Does this at all vindicate some of the concerns you've been raising about the way IDAC handled high-profile prosecutions?
Certainly, it has, and we're still wondering why Advocate Mthibi is still holding on to plea. It's talking about preliminary withdrawals, because the evidence has been very damning, overwhelming before Madlanga. Forget about what happened, the circus that happened in Parliament. At the Madlanga, she was able to meticulously be taken through the era of law and the bias that was also shown in her pursuit of what is basically a spurious charges against, amongst others, Dineo Mukwege. And she could see that her actions, she considered her actions were indefensible. And that, I think, must have also added on the stress she found herself under, then the pressure for her to make a decision to leave, because it was just untenable.
Absolutely, because the Commission has also exposed some very serious allegations. In your view, with all that we've uncovered so far, has this become a case, do you think, of individual misconduct, or does it point to the deeper institutional failures and accountability issues within IDAC?
I think it's the latter, and I'll tell you why. And having said it's the latter, it doesn't mean that everybody who works for IDAC is corrupt or corruptible. There are good men and women in that institution. However, those at the leadership and those who had influence over the institution were the one who let everybody down, and thus casting doubt in the reputation of the institution itself. And with Johnson having left, it doesn't necessarily mean that the problems are gone. Because she did not do the things, she did not do the investigations herself. She did not do some of the work that was related, including to some extent the prosecution herself. There were individuals who were behind the likes of Fellowship and many others, or several others. So for as long as those individuals still sit in the institution, including the head of investigations himself, who has got it loud over his head, IDAC will never change. So there needs to be a deep cleanse, if I may use that, and a deep dive to ensure that the problems that afflicted that IDAC, which now are coming up in the open, which we believe there's probably even more that we are not privy to, need to be attended to and cleared, and make sure that the institution is strengthened, and ensure that ethics and integrity is what it's centered upon or around. Which was not the case in this instance, where you have the head of the institution itself disclosing protected disclosure information to suspects or individuals in the crosshair of investigations. That is something that it talks about ethical leadership, which is very lacking. So, but we do believe that the institution itself must be able to survive this and strengthened. And there's obviously a lot of structural changes that need to be made to ensure that it fortifies and future-proofs IDAC.
Absolutely, especially because IDAC was established to tackle high-level corruption. So what immediate actions would you like to see, especially more action taken by Minister of Justice Mamoloko Kubai or the National Prosecuting Authority to demonstrate that accountability extends beyond former IDAC head Andrea Johnson?
I think immediately what needs to happen is, well, obviously you have to be careful not for the minister to be seen to be interfering, otherwise he gets suspended like Senzum Kuno.
Yes.
But at the same time, a message must be sent on a policy level that perhaps you should put a pause on any prosecution matter that relates to crime intelligence or SAPS related, and until such time that these matters are certified that they are free of any interference. Because even if you look at the Medicare 24 matter itself, you could see the manner in which even the Kat Matlala plea deal, which fell, was actually negotiated in circumstances where it left a lot of question, where you have the mastermind of a supposedly multi-million tender being considered for leniency and being put in the same same line with individuals who are not charged for corruption, who are not charged for fraud or bribery. And here we talk about the suspended national commissioner.
Yes.
In circumstances where the charges that he faces under PFMA are things that most officers within the state, accounting officers, could very well be accused of. And you ask yourself, are you going to lump everybody else who had no criminal intent with those who are hardened criminal accused of corruption or serious crimes? So you need to make sure that you do a revisit of all those cases and ensure that they get recertified once everything has been satisfied, that they cross all the things. Because she has also accepted that she was prosecuting on Section 27 referrals when they did not even meet the basic minimum,
Yes.
or trigger the minimum requirements to prosecute under that, and even went on to prosecute on things that were not even asked for in the referral or contemplated with the referral. Then you ask yourself, was she just on the personal frolic of her own to try and exert revenge to others? Those are questions that are still remain to be answered.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for summing that up.